Conor Benn is set to sue the British Boxing Board of Control for £3.5 million. Speaking exclusively in an interview with The Mail on Sunday, Benn said, "I've always been innocent and the board have known about this for ages, except they chose to call the show off 2 days before it was due to take place. There's been other fighters in the past who have tested positive under UKAD and the board have done nothing. They've still been allowed to fight. It's just strange to me that VADA, the voluntary anti-doping organisation that I employed myself for this fight, the British Boxing Board of Control, have taken notice of other fighters who have failed the board's own testing agencies. It is just baffling to me. I don't know if there's an agenda there or if they're out for me because my dad ripped up his British boxing licence on TV." Conor Benn's promoter Eddie Hearn also chimed in. He said, "We had a similar situation with Dillian Whyte. He had a hearing before his fight and UKAD cleared him to fight. Conor Benn never had a chance to have a hearing before the fight. The British Boxing Board of Control just sat on it and leaked it to the press and went from there." Okay, people, there you have it. Let's unpack this. Now, first of all, this is not going to go down well with the British public, at least not in the short term, because many of them see Conor Benn as a spoilt rich kid who's been acting very entitled throughout this whole process. And the fact that he's now decided to sue the British Boxing Board of Control for an enormous amount of money will be seen by many as a very audacious move. Benn is seeking damages for loss of earnings for the Eubank Jr. fight that didn't go ahead and damage to his reputation. Now, Robert Smith, who is the head honcho at the British Boxing Board of Control, did an interview with TalkSport recently, and he was asked why they didn't withdraw sanctioning of the bout up until a couple days before, when they had this information regarding Conor Benn's failed tests several weeks earlier. And Robert Smith just said that there was a legal process going on behind the scenes, and he implied that they had to wait for that process to play out before they could act. He didn't give any more details than that regarding exactly what that process was. But if I can just speculate for a moment, Eddie Hearn and Sauerland said that they submitted all of the medical information regarding the failed test to various experts. And these experts determined that the amount of clomiphene in Conor Benn's system was so small that it wouldn't enhance his performance in the ring. To my knowledge, these experts were not people appointed by the British Boxing Board of Control or people who the British Boxing Board of Control normally work with. The British board use UKAD to conduct not only all their PED testing, but also their investigations. So you could see why the British board wouldn't be comfortable going ahead with the fight without running the evidence by UKAD first. If Team Benn didn't allow them to do this, then the board may not have had any legal grounds upon which to suspend Benn pending the completion of a UKAD investigation. So perhaps the delay was the British board consulting with their legal team, trying to figure out a way to withdraw sanctioning of the bout legally. If this indeed is what has gone on, then, as I say, I fully understand why the British board would withdraw sanctioning of the bout. I fully understand why they would want to run all the information and evidence via UKAD in order to feel comfortable. But again, what I've just said is me speculating. With the Dillian Whyte situation that Conor Benn alluded to and Eddie Hearn mentioned specifically, it was a UKAD test that Dillian Whyte failed, and therefore UKAD could investigate immediately. They had all the information and all the evidence, and they were able to make a ruling straight away. Now, we've never been made privy to the exact details of Dillian Whyte's failed test, such as the exact reason Dillian Whyte gave for the substance being in his system, and why UKAD and the British board decided to accept his explanation. So in absence of that information, it's difficult to compare the two situations and come to any concrete conclusions about them. As it stands right now, the British board have yet to receive this 270-page dossier of evidence that Team Benn compiled and submitted to the WBC. Presumably, the British board will take that evidence and hand it over to UKAD. Now again, I'm going to speculate here. Sometimes legal action is used as an intimidation tactic. Even if you know you've done wrong, if you've got more money than the people you intend to sue, you can use the threat of legal action to make the other side fall in line with what you want. The British board was sued by Frank Warren back in the day, and they nearly went bankrupt as a result. This is not a tremendously wealthy organization. In legal matters, it's not always a case of who's in the right and who's in the wrong. It's sometimes about whose pockets are deep enough to actually survive the legal process. And so, hypothetically, let's say Conor Benn wants the British board and UKAD to back off and not conduct any investigation. In such a scenario, maybe they could use threats of legal action to make them back off. And the British board will say, okay, we won't do any investigation. We'll reinstate your license. We don't want that legal smoke. Again, I'm not saying this is what's going on. I'm speculating. I certainly don't want to get sued here. But as an outsider looking in, I'm wondering whether this is what's going on here. As far as the British board having some type of agenda against Conor Benn, I can't dismiss that notion entirely, but I've yet to see any evidence for it. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section below. Conor Benn suing the British Boxing Board of Control for £3.5 million. And if he's successful, by the way, if this actually goes to court and he gets that payout, for one, I don't know whether the British board actually have that much money to give him. And if they don't, what then happens to them? Do they go bust? Would a new governing body then have to be created? In the meantime, would fights in Britain be sanctioned by foreign commissions? You know, like when Frank Warren had the David Haye, Derek Chisora bout sanctioned by the Luxembourg Commission. Who knows? It's all up in the air. Let me know what you guys think. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.